The moment she looked me in the eye and said, "I think we should take a break," I felt something inside me snap. Not break snap, like a cord pulled too tight for too long. But what gutted me wasn't the words themselves. It was the way she said it. No tears, no hesitation. Just calm, rehearsed detachment, like canceling a gym membership. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a mistake. This was a decision. And I knew right then that there was someone else. I'd been working 15-hour days, busting my back to close a deal meant to buy us a house, a future, a life. While I was building something for us, she was out auditioning replacements. And when she finally said his name, it wasn't shock I felt. It was confirmation of the sick feeling I'd been pushing down for weeks. Her words weren't a knife in my back. They were a bullet-clean, quick final. Before we dive into today's story, take a moment to share where you're watching from. We love seeing how our stories bring people together from every corner of the world. Your thoughts and comments are what make this community so special, and we're truly grateful to have you here. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story filled with drama resilience and unexpected twists. Now settle in, get comfortable, and maybe grab your favorite drink because this is a tale you won't want to miss. Let's get started. I don't think there's a word for the exact feeling you get when someone you love looks you in the eye and erases you from their life like you never mattered. Maybe betrayal comes close, or humiliation. But neither of those words really capture the hollow echo that fills your chest when the person you built your future around quietly decides you're no longer part of theirs. It was a Thursday night. I remember that clearly because I'd wrapped work earlier than unusual, because for the last 4 months, I'd been grinding harder than I ever had. 15-hour days, weekends, late nights, early mornings. Not because I wanted to be absent, not because I didn't care. Quite the opposite. I was preparing to surprise Sierra with something big, a $2.5 million waterfront home on Star Island, a place that would mark the start of everything we'd been talking about for years. Marriage, family, our future. I walked into the condo keys jangling, expecting to see her scrolling Instagram on the couch, maybe teasing me about working too hard. Instead, she was standing at the kitchen island, perfectly styled, not a hair out of place. Her lips glossed, nails manicured, wearing that silk blouse she always pulled out when she wanted to look put together, but not too obvious about it. She didn't even look up. I think, her voice was flat, rehearsed. I think we should take a break. For a second, I thought I misheard. Or maybe I was still too wired from the back-to-back calls I'd been on all day. A break, I asked, walking toward her cautiously like you would toward someone holding a loaded gun. A break from what? Her thumb slid across her phone screen like she was half listening. Us. It hit like a fist straight to my chest. But not because of the words. No, it was the way she said it. No tremor in her voice, no emotion, no guilt. Just a clinical detachment, like canceling a subscription. Like I was a service that had stopped delivering value. Sierra, what are you talking about? My voice came out lower than I expected. Nearly a whisper, a break. Where's this even coming from? She finally put the phone down, but didn't meet my eyes. I don't know. Things feel different. You're always busy. You've changed. You're not present. The irony twisted the knife. I had been absent, but for her, for us. Every late night, every weekend I spent buried in contracts, investor calls, and negotiations was for her. So we could stop renting. So we could build a future. Something inside me started fraying, tightening like a wire pulled to the point of snapping. Are you? I stopped. swallowed. Are you seeing someone else? Her silence was the answer. Not a shocked denial, not a protest. Just nothing. A pause long enough to suffocate me. When she finally spoke, it was barely above a murmur. Julian. And just like that, the bottom fell out. Of course it was Julian. Julian Devereaux, Mr. Hedge Fund, Mr. Always Posting from Yachts, the guy who never wore the same designer suit twice, the guy who showed up to every networking event like he owned the room. And maybe in some ways he did. Money talks in this city. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. Julianne, as in that Julianne. She shifted, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, finally glancing up, but only for a second. It's not like that. I barked a humorless laugh. It's exactly like that. Her arms crossed. Defensive now. You've been checked out. You work all the time. I feel like I don't even exist to you anymore. I stepped back, stunned. Are you serious, Sierra? I've been working because I've been... My mouth snapped shut. No, I wasn't telling her, not anymore. The surprise, the house, the future I'd been building, gone. Irrelevant. She didn't deserve to know. I stared at her, waiting. Hoping idiotically for... what? Regret? An apology. Something. Instead, she shrugged. I need someone who matches my energy. Someone who gets me. Matches my energy. The phrase was so cold, so transactional, it barely sounded like English. I didn't shout, didn't throw anything, didn't fall apart. Something inside me went eerily, terrifyingly quiet. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time saw her clearly. Not the woman I fell for, not the woman I imagined building a life with. No. What I saw was someone who'd made this decision long before this conversation ever happened. The worst part. This wasn't an impulsive mistake. This was calculated. Practiced. My gaze flicked past her, and that's when I saw it. Our wedding photo. The one from Capri. It had always hung on the hallway shelf next to the entry. Except now. It was face down. Not knocked over by accident. Deliberately. A chill ran through me, colder than anything her words had delivered. She hadn't erased me tonight. She erased me days ago, maybe weeks. The silence between us stretched, suffocating. Her arms were still crossed. Mine hung limp at my sides. My mouth was dry. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside and left nothing but air. I turned toward the bedroom. My brain didn't fully register what I was doing, just moving on autopilot. I wasn't sure whether I was looking for a bag, my keys, an explanation. Anything to anchor me back to reality. But reality had left the building. I stood there in the doorway for a beat, looked around. This wasn't my home anymore. Not really. Not after this. I forced a breath. Turned back. You know what? My voice was weirdly steady. It's fine. It's all fine. Her expression flickered. Was that surprise, disbelief, maybe even a touch of guilt? Too little. Too late. You've made your choice, Sierra. I hope he's everything you think he is. I didn't wait for a reply. Just grabbed my jacket, my laptop, the nearest set of keys, and walked out. Didn't slam the door, didn't say goodbye. Just walked. Out of the condo, out of the life I'd spent years building. As the elevator doors closed, my hands trembled, not with sadness, not anymore. With something else. Something sharper. Something heavier. I wasn't sure what it was yet, but I knew one thing with absolute, bone-deep certainty. This story wasn't over. Not even close. Not. A week passed, and I was still stuck in that strange place between disbelief and fury, the kind where your brain keeps replaying the same scenes over and over, like some sick highlight reel. Sierra's voice, her face, the way she said, "We should take a break," like she was asking for extra guac on her burrito. And then, the photo, our wedding photo, already turned face down before she even had the decency or the nerve to tell me. The worst part, Miami's the kind of place where running into someone isn't a possibility. It's a guarantee. Same clubs, same brunch spots, same overpriced coffee shops. Everyone knows everyone, and if they don't, they know someone who does. I was doing everything in my power to avoid that which meant avoiding half the damn city. I buried myself in work in the gym and anything that would keep my mind from spiraling. But no matter how many miles I ran or deals I closed, that gnawing feeling never left. The ache that kept whispering you missed something. You didn't see the whole picture. And then, it started. A notification pinged on my phone. Instagram. A friend tagged me in a story. Curious, I opened it. And there it was. Sierra. Smiling. Laughing. Holding hands with Julian. At a rooftop event downtown. Some influencer charity thing for a dog rescue, or something equally photogenic. The caption from a mutual friend read, "Sometimes you don't downgrade. You upgrade." My stomach flipped. I sat there staring at the screen, pulse thudding in my ears. This wasn't a soft launch. This was full send. Public. Official. Branded. And it wasn't just the photo. Within minutes, I had 4 different screenshots in my messages. Friends, acquaintances, even people I hadn't spoken to in years were sending me stuff. "She really moved on quick, huh? Bro, you seeing this? Didn't want to be the one to tell you, but damn, I didn't respond. I couldn't. Then one screenshot hit harder than the others. A group chat. Not just any chat. Sierra's influencer circle. Deadweight anyway. She leveled up hard. "Landon on Star Island, please. Not even with a lottery win." My throat tightened. Each line felt like a brick slamming into my chest. The people I used to invite to dinner. People I thought were friends, or at least friendly, were now gleefully dancing on my grave. Except I wasn't dead. Not yet. A familiar voice broke the spiral. "You're gonna want to sit down for this." I turned. It was Talia. Talia Cortez. Tech consultant. Cybersecurity genius. Loyal to a fault. The person who saw me, not the image, not the ambition, but me. She walked in without waiting for permission, laptop in hand, jaw tight. "What now?" I asked, more exhausted than curious. She sat flipping the screen around. "It's not just her, and it's not just cheating." I blinked. "What, Julian?" She clicked something. A web of connections lit up across her screen shell companies, offshore accounts, dummy corporations. "This guy didn't just steal your wife, Landon. He tried to steal your future." I leaned in. "Explain." She sighed. 6 months ago, you were in final talks with Atlantic Ventures, right? That $20 million funding round. Yeah, they ghosted me out of nowhere. No explanation. Not no explanation. She tapped a folder. "Julianne, he's been running a private smear campaign against you, leaking fake legal reports, false accusations about pending lawsuits, claims your company's under investigation for IP theft." I felt my jaw clench so hard it hurt. "Are you kidding me?" "Nope." She scrolled further. He seeded it through back channels. Whisper networks. People trust him because he's been at every yacht party, every hedge fund mixer, every luxury charity event for the past 5 years. My fists curled. "And no one thought to—" Verify. Talia gave me a dry look. "Welcome to Miami. Image is currency. If you look the part, people assume the rest." It was like every nerve in my body was firing at once. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just her. This was coordinated. Strategic. "Wait." I said something dawning on me. The merger deal with Harbor Capital. That fell apart 2 months ago. She nodded. Same fingerprints. A bitter laugh escaped me. So while I was working my ass off trying to buy her a house, he was working just as hard burning my name behind the scenes. Talia didn't smile. That's not even the worst part. I stared. There's worse. She slid a second folder forward. Julian's personal life isn't exactly what he sells on Instagram. Click. Images, screenshots, bank transfers, encrypted chats, payments to escorts, NDAs signed in back rooms of luxury hotels, photos intimate unmistakable with 2 different men. None of this was public. None of it had leaked. Yet. I sat back, stunned. Sierra. Does she know? Talia shrugged. Doubt it. She's as much a pawn as she is complicit. He's running 2 games at once, public hedge fund mogul, private chaos merchant. For a long second, I couldn't breathe. Not because I cared what Julian did behind closed doors. No judgment there. But because it was all a lie. Every post, every flex, every smug look he'd shot me at networking events over the years. None of it was real. My hands trembled, not with fear, not with grief, with something sharper, colder, cleaner. Does he know you found this? I asked. Talia smirked. No, not yet. Silence hung heavy. Until it didn't. A shift happened inside me. I felt it. Physically. Like a lever had been pulled. The grief, the humiliation gone. Burned up in an instant. In its place was something new. Ruthless clarity. I stood pacing toward the window. Downtown Miami shimmered in the distance, glass towers catching the sunset yachts drifting lazily along the bay. And suddenly the city didn't feel so big, or so intimidating. It felt manageable, beatable. He made me his enemy, I said quietly. Fine. Now he's mine. Talia closed the laptop with a satisfying snap. Game on. We spent the next 2 hours drawing lines, outlining connections, mapping weaknesses. Not because I wanted revenge for the sake of revenge, no. This wasn't about hurting Sierra. This wasn't even fully about Julian. This was about taking back my name, my future, my peace. Because if they thought I was broken, if they thought I was the fool in this story, they were about to learn something very important. I play the long game, and I never lose. There's a kind of power in silence that most people will never understand. Real power doesn't scream, it doesn't posture, it doesn't flex. It waits, watches, and then it strikes calculated, precise, devastating. That was the mindset I walked in with when I stepped onto the marble floors of the Miami Yacht Club that night. I wasn't supposed to be here. At least not according to Sierra. Not according to Julian. Not according to the whispers that had written me off like last season's tech bubble. Yet here I was, tailored navy blazer, open-collar shoes, polished like mirrors flanked by Talia, who looked every bit the shark in heels that she was. Heads turned, some double-took, others whispered behind crystal flutes of overpriced champagne. They noticed me, but more importantly, they noticed I wasn't limping. I wasn't broken. I was composed, unbothered. Look alive, Talia murmured, tilting her head subtly toward the entrance. I followed her gaze. There they were. Julian Devereaux and Sierra Vale. He was every bit the caricature of Miami wealth-tailored white tux watch that cost more than some condo's downtown sunglasses on, at night. The man thought he was the sun. And Sierra. She was draped in emerald silk, the kind of dress designed to whisper money without screaming it. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect lie. They moved through the crowd like they owned the place. Flashbulbs sparked. A photographer shouted Julian's name. Sierra laughed a little too loud, her fingers curled into his arm like a trophy wife in training. As they got closer, Julian's eyes flicked toward me. The smirk curled before he even opened his mouth. "Well, well," he drawled, just loud enough for people nearby to catch. "Didn't expect to see you here. Thought this event was, for winners." A ripple of muted laughter floated from a few eavesdroppers. Sierra chuckled, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. "Miami's for the ambitious Landon, not the struggling." Her tone was laced with honey and cyanide. I didn't move, didn't blink. I just stared back. 2 seconds. Direct. Unbothered. Then I turned away, sipped my drink, didn't say a word, because nothing hits harder than indifference. I knew what that silence did to Julian. Narcissists feed on reactions. When you don't give them one, it's like cutting off their oxygen. Talia smirked beside me. That was colder than anything I could have scripted. "Let it marinate," I replied quietly. "Let them wonder." But the truth, I didn't come just to flex. I came because tonight marked the turning point, and they didn't even know it yet. As the night wound on, small talk blurred into background noise. Deals were brokered between sips of bourbon. Brands discussed collabs over oysters. Miami's elite played their endless game of who's up, who's fading. Julian worked the room with that used car salesman confidence he'd perfected, laughing a little too loud, clapping people on the back a little too hard. A man who looked rich. Sounded rich. But behind the mask, cracks. Deep ones. I knew something he didn't. I knew his clock was ticking. "Elliot Kane's upstairs," Talia said, checking her phone. I stiffened. Elliot Kane. The venture capitalist who ghosted me 6 months ago after what I now knew were fabricated reports seeded by Julian. The same Elliot who once told me I didn't look like someone who scales companies. Code for, "You don't fit the image." I downed the last of my drink. "Let's go." The penthouse suite was quieter, cooler. Less noise, more money. Elliot stood by the window watching the city glow beneath him. "Landon." His voice was clipped but not dismissive. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Funny," I replied, stepping forward. I was thinking the same. A beat passed. Then he sighed. "Look, I owe you something. An apology." I blinked. Not what I expected. Elliot turned, folding his arms. "I believed some things I shouldn't have. I didn't look closely enough. I listened to noise instead of facts." "That's on me." I said nothing. "Let him keep going." He nodded more to himself. "But I've since looked deeper. You've built something real, something big, and frankly, you're about to eat half this town alive." A slow smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. "Glad you finally noticed. Which is why—" He pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. "I want in. 40 million. Lead investor." I opened the folder. Terms were better than fair. They were aggressive in my favor. What changed, I asked, knowing full well, but wanting to hear it. Elliot smiled, wolfish. "Let's just say, some other horses I bet on turned out to be less than thoroughbreds." Translation. Julian's cracks were starting to show. I closed the folder. Deal. We shook hands, and in that moment everything shifted. Not long after, Talia leaned in, whispering wires cleared. "House is yours." I glanced down at my phone. The notification stared back, transaction complete. $2,500, $1,000 wired. Star Island property transferred. No post, no announcement, no flex. Just done. Talia grinned. They won't know until they drive by. I smirked. Perfect. The next 24 hours were a blur of execution. Documents signed, bank accounts separated. Every joint membership, every lingering financial tether to Sierra, cut, gone, deleted like a bad file. A mutual friend texted someone who hadn't yet picked a side in the fallout. Yo, weird one. Sierra's moving offices near Star Island. Julianne's busy with something. She needs a ride. You around? I stared at the message for a long beat, then typed one word. No. Blocked. Number deleted. By the following evening, I was standing on the balcony of my new home. Star Island stretched beneath me, sleek, silent, untouchable. The bay shimmered. Yachts glided by like lazy sharks. I looked back at Talia, who handed me a glass of whiskey. To endings, she said. I shook my head. No, not endings. I raised the glass. To new chapters. And to reminding people that sometimes the underdog isn't the one who falls. She grinned. He's the one who bites. As the sun set over the water, one thought pulsed louder than the waves. They thought I was done. Finished. Out of their league. But here's the truth. They weren't in mine. If power has a sound, it's not loud. It doesn't crash or roar. It's the sharp, deafening silence that fills the space right before someone realizes they bet on the wrong horse. That silence was about to drown Julian Devereaux and Sierra Vale. It started quietly, the way most storms do. A whisper, a flicker of doubt, a small crack spidering through the perfectly polished image they'd worked so hard to project. The first crack came in the form of a headline. Star Island property sold in cash deal to mysterious tech entrepreneur. No name, no photos, just enough to get tongues wagging in the right circles. And they did. Fast. The whispers were everywhere. Over brunch in Coconut Grove, at rooftop bars in Brickell, at the private Pilates studio Sierra loved to flaunt on Instagram. Wait, is that Landon? Didn't he just get left? No way. No way. Julian caught wind of it within hours. The smug grin he wore like a designer accessory started to slip. Not all at once, just barely. But it slipped. The second crack was smaller, but sharper. Sierra walked into a boutique in the Miami Design District, one of those places where the cheapest thing starts at 4 figures. She picked out a $14,000 handbag without blinking, walked to the register, smiled, handed over Julian's platinum card, declined. The clerk, all polished professionalism, didn't flinch. Do you have another card you'd like to try? Sierra's smile froze. Her cheeks colored not with rage yet, but the faint, creeping heat of embarrassment. That can't be right. Run it again. She glanced over her shoulder. 2 women, both regulars, pretended to browse, but were absolutely listening. Beep, swipe, declined. Again. The clerk cleared her throat gently. It happens sometimes with international holds. Sierra fumbled, digging into her purse. Found her own card. It worked. Barely. The transaction slid through, but the damage done. The whispers would beat her home. When she walked out, her hands trembled. Not because of the money, but because for the first time, she realized the foundation beneath her feet wasn't just cracked. It was quicksand. Julianne met her at their penthouse that evening, jaw-tight pacing. It's nothing, just a glitch, a banking error. I'll fix it. She didn't press. Not yet. But the seed was planted. The third crack didn't bother with subtlety. A photo leaked. Julianne. On his yacht. Drunk. Sloppy. Not with Sierra. Not even with another woman. Two men. Well known in certain circles. And not in the we're just friends kind of way. The photo hit Reddit first, then X, then Instagram, captioned brutally billionaire, or billionaire fantasy. The comment sections were brutal. No wonder the SEC's sniffing around. Is the yacht called Liquidity or Liquidation? Imagine leaving a king for this. Sierra saw it before breakfast. Her phone exploded texts from friends, ex-friends, frenemies. Half fake concern, half enjoying the show. Her hands shook as she confronted Julian. What? What is this? She hissed, shoving the phone in his face. Julian didn't flinch. It's fake. AI. Photoshop. Who cares? Her voice cracked. Is it? His eyes were cold now. Dead. I never promised you anything, Sierra. You were convenient. A prop. A distraction. It landed like a slap. She backed up. You're joking. Glass shattered. Maybe a wine glass, maybe something else. Neither remembered. The penthouse, once their symbol of arrival, now echoed with the sound of a woman realizing in real time she'd bet everything on nothing. Meanwhile, across town, I sat on the balcony of my Star Island home, scrolling casually, whiskey in hand, watching it all burn. A push notification popped up. Miami Business Journal tech underdog to industry titan Landon Cross shifts the power game. I chuckled. Quiet. Controlled. Talia sat beside me scrolling too. You seeing this? She asked, holding up her phone. A group chat. Screenshots flying. Bro, this is embarrassing. She left him for this. Julian's whole empire is smoke. Yikes! Talia grinned. They're turning on them. Fast. I nodded. Gravity's doing the work. No push needed. But the best was yet to come. 2 nights later, a private influencer yacht party kicked off just off Fisher Island. The same scene, same circle, same plastic smiles. Except this time, no one stood near Sierra. The whispers were louder now. No attempt to hide. She really thought she won. Girl downgraded hard. Wonder if Julian's card is working tonight. Even the DJ seemed in on it, dropping a remix of Gold Digger right as Sierra walked past the bar. She stumbled. Not physically, but socially. Her footing gone. Her power evaporated. Desperate, she tried to cling to old allies. But the influencer world is loyal to one thing, and one thing only: clout. And hers was bankrupt. Even her own parents weren't immune to the shift. At an art gala the following weekend, I spotted them, Ruth and Malcolm Vale, laughing, smiling, with me. Malcolm clasped my shoulder like an old friend. If only we'd seen back then what we see now. His voice was loud enough to carry, loud enough for Sierra to hear, as she stood frozen by the champagne table. Her face pale, bloodless. For the first time since this all began, the influencer mask didn't hold. Her eyes watered not with grief, with something worse. Recognition. She finally saw it. The full picture. I wasn't the loser in this story. I was the main character. And she, just a bad plot twist. As for Julian, the collapse accelerated. His hedge fund, once the darling of high net worth Miami, started leaking. Investors pulled out. Rumors swirled about federal financial scrutiny. Julian scrambled. Meetings, calls, pleading, promising. But his confidence was thin now. His bravado a cheap knockoff. A single headline sealed it: is Miami's hottest hedge fund, just smoke and mirrors. Julian's photo, front and center. Circles under his eyes. Tie crooked. A man unraveling. I sat back, sipping my drink, watching the city eat him alive. Talia nudged me, grinning. Didn't even have to lift a finger. I raised my glass. Gravity did the work. As the sun dipped below the horizon, one thing was clear. This wasn't the climax. This was just the prelude, because the real collapse, the real reckoning, was still coming. I wasn't expecting them to be there. Then again, maybe I was. I was standing in the driveway of my new Star Island mansion, watching as movers carried in the final pieces of furniture, when the familiar glint of a black Mercedes Maybach rolled slowly past the front gates. The tinted window didn't roll down, but I didn't need it to. I saw them. Sierra, Julianne. Front seats. Frozen. I didn't even have to pretend. The timing was almost cinematic. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my keys, and hit the button. The gate swung open silently. The movers waved. I walked up to the porch, leaned casually against the railing, and smiled. No words, no gestures, just a smile. But that was enough. Sierra's face, her jaw actually dropped. Hand over her mouth. Disbelief, confusion, panic all flashed across her eyes in the span of 3 seconds. Julian's smug expression twisted into something tight. Sour. The look of a man realizing in real time that the narrative had flipped, and he was no longer the main character. I raised my hand, gave them a little wave. A slow, calm, disrespectfully casual wave. The Maybach accelerated away, tires screeching. Talia, who'd been watching from the balcony, let out a breathless laugh. You could have charged admission for that. I grinned. Worth every penny. But this wasn't the victory. Not yet. This was just the trailer. The main event was coming. Investor dinner. The beginning of the end. The Fontainebleau Hotel's private rooftop suite was packed. Miami's wealthiest hedge fund managers, crypto bros, real estate tycoons, all gathered under one skyline. Julian stood at the center. Or at least he tried to. His confidence wasn't as smooth tonight. His usually crisp white tux had the faintest sheen of sweat beneath the collar. His smile a little forced, a little tight. He could feel it. The tension. The room didn't buzz with excitement the way it usually did. It buzzed with something else. Something sharper. Curiosity. Caution. Doubt. Conversations halted when he walked by. Whispers picked up just after. Phones were being checked a little too often. Eyes darted. And he knew why. The leaks, the photos, the yacht scandal, the rumors about liquidity issues in his fund, the whispers that the SEC was sniffing around. He raised a glass anyway, pushed the grin. Gentlemen, as always, a pleasure to host Miami's finest. A few nods, a few polite clinks, but the usual applause, gone. He launched into his pitch. A new fund, new opportunities, cutting-edge tech plays. We're positioned better than anyone for the next cycle, he rambled. But his voice lacked its usual punch. Half the room wasn't listening. They were scrolling their phones, whispering, exchanging glances. Then came the sound, not loud, but unmistakable. Footsteps, heavy, measured, boots, law enforcement boots. The twist, the fall. The door swung open. 2 federal agents stepped inside. Not security, not hotel staff, FBI. The lead agent's voice was calm, crisp. Julianne Devereaux. Julianne blinked. Yeah, Federal Bureau of Investigation. You're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. The room went dead silent. Someone's wine glass hit the floor. Shattered. Julian sputtered. Wait, this is a mistake. But the agents were already moving, hands behind his back, cuffing him. Reading rights. Professional. Efficient. Brutal. Phones came out. Instantly. No one tried to help. No one tried to step in. No one even pretended to be shocked. Because no one was. They were relieved. Entertained. As the agents turned Julian toward the elevator, someone in the back chuckled quietly. Guess liquidity really did dry up. Another snapped a photo. Man's trending by sunrise. Sierra wasn't there. She'd skipped this dinner, which was a mercy, because what was happening to Julian was about to hit her next. Media frenzy. The implosion. By the time the sun rose, every major financial outlet was running it. Devereaux arrested in Miami. Fraud scheme unraveled. From billion-dollar hedge fund to federal custody liquidity dried up, SEC confirms. Years of financial misconduct, CNN. Bloomberg, Forbes, even TMZ, and social media. It detonated. Bro left his wife for a richer man, and now look at him. She downgraded so hard they're calling it the Miami Miracle in reverse. Never seen karma work this fast. Memes flooded X and Instagram. Julianne in an orange jumpsuit photoshopped onto the liquidity yacht. Captions like sailing, straight to prison. It was merciless. Unforgiving. Beautiful. Sierra's collapse. No more safety net. At first, she tried to stay silent. Pretend it wasn't happening. Her Instagram posted a photo from weeks ago captioned, "Just focusing on the positive vibes." It didn't work. Her comments flooded. Girl, blink twice if you're okay. The positive vibes are at the county jail now. This didn't age well. Then came the emails. From her brand partnerships. In light of recent events, we are suspending your contract. Effective immediately. Bank accounts. Frozen. Joint funds with Julian flagged in the federal investigation. Her cards declined twice that morning. Worse. Her phone stopped ringing. Friends vanished. Her influencer circle ghosted. No brunch invites. No collab requests. Nothing. Even her own parents stopped taking her calls. And it hit. Finally. Fully. She stood in the middle of her penthouse, half the furniture rented, the rest financed beyond what she could cover, realizing it was over. Not just the marriage, not just the image. Everything. The woman who had laughed in my face weeks ago was now a ghost in her own life. The final move. My quiet goodbye. I didn't throw a party, didn't pop champagne. I just posted one photo. A shot from my balcony. My dog sitting in front of the infinity pool watching the sunset over the bay. Caption simple. Elegant. Cold. Peace is priceless. That was it. No gloating, no name-dropping, no call-outs. But the comments did the talking. King behavior. This is how you win. From pawn to king. The post went viral in under an hour. 500K likes, 60K shares, countless memes. The message was clear. This chapter closed. As I sat back watching the sunset dip below the horizon, Talia walked out with 2 glasses of whiskey. "Done?" she asked. I nodded. "Done. Feels good." "Yeah," I smiled. "But it's not about them anymore." She raised a brow. "No," I shook my head. "It's about what comes next." The past burned. The empire they tried to build on my ashes gone. I wasn't rebuilding. I was starting something entirely new, on my terms. The thing about closure is, people assume it comes in the form of some neat emotional conversation. A sit-down, a mutual understanding, apologies exchanged. That's not how life works. Closure isn't a conversation. It's not forgiveness. It's success. It's waking up one day realizing the people who tried to break you don't even occupy space in your mind anymore. That realization hit me at the most unexpected moment, an art gala. The gala wasn't something I usually attended, but Elliot had extended the invite. Big names, old money, new money. A fundraiser masked as a networking event, masked as a cultural contribution to the city. Miami in a nutshell. I walked in tailored, polished, unbothered. Talia was on my arm, business partner on paper, but more than that in spirit. My circle now was made of people who built, not leached. And that's when I saw them. Or rather, her. Sierra. She was standing near the back wall next to a sculpture that probably cost more than what she had left in her accounts. Alone. She looked different. The hair wasn't as styled. The dress was expensive but off, like it had been borrowed, or begged, or maybe a last desperate swipe on a credit card that was barely holding together. Her eyes met mine. A flicker of something hope. Desperation, maybe. Disbelief. She stepped forward. "Landon." I didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't scowl, just neutral. I just... Her words stumbled over themselves. I wanted to talk, to explain. I held up a hand. "No." She blinked. "What I don't need an explanation, and I don't want one." But I shook my head, voice calm but sharp enough to slice through her words. "There's nothing left to discuss. You made your choice. You doubled down on it. And now, this is just the result of that choice." Her lips trembled. "I didn't know. I didn't think." I stepped closer. Not threatening, just enough that she had to look up. "I was never your safety net. And I was never your fallback. I was your best option. You'll never get that chance again." For a moment the mask shattered. Her face crumpled not with rage, not with manipulation, but with raw, undeniable regret. But I didn't stay to watch it. I turned, walked away. Talia glanced sideways. That felt final. It was. The parent's choice. The universe has a cruel sense of humor sometimes, or maybe it just has perfect timing. 10 minutes later, I found myself in a conversation with Ruth and Malcolm Sierra's parents, and to my surprise, they weren't avoiding me. They weren't cold. In fact, Malcolm clapped me on the back like an old friend. "Landon," he grinned, swirling his whiskey. "Glad you made it. Was hoping we'd run into you." I blinked. "Yeah." Ruth smiled warmly. "Of course. You've always been, well, the best thing that ever happened to our daughter." Her eyes flicked intentionally toward Sierra, who stood several feet away, frozen. Malcolm leaned in conspiratorially. "To be honest, we warned her. About Julian. About, well, this entire disaster. But you know how kids are. Some lessons. They insist on learning the hard way." I chuckled, but it wasn't malicious. Just incredulous. "You two are full of surprises." Malcolm laughed. "We were always Team Landon. She just didn't realize what she had until she lost it. The glance they shot Sierra was deliberate, ice cold, and for the first time since this entire saga started, it wasn't me standing alone. It was her. Julian's fate. The hammer falls. 2 days later, the sentencing came down. 14 years. No parole. Wire fraud, securities fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy. The courtroom was packed. Cameras lined the sidewalk outside. Reporters shouted questions at anyone who came within 6 feet of the door. I wasn't there, didn't need to be. But I got the texts, the photos, the headlines. Devereaux sentenced. The fall of Miami's fraud king. From billionaire to inmate. The collapse of Julian Devereaux. Mugshots splashed everywhere. And the comments even better. Imagine burning your whole life for this clown. Sierra fumbled harder than anyone in history. Bro went from yacht parties to yard time. Sierra's last stand and collapse. When Julian fell, so did everything connected to him. The accounts gone, frozen, seized, the penthouse foreclosed, the cars repossessed, the brand deals canceled. Her social circle evaporated. There was no safety net, no soft landing. The woman who once sneered that I wasn't enough for her was now scanning job listings like anyone else. Her Instagram turned private. The comments disabled. Last I heard, she was working retail, folding clothes for women she used to try and emulate. My company, higher than ever. Meanwhile, my company hit numbers I hadn't even projected for another 3 years. The merger with Elliott's group tripled our valuation. Tech magazines ran profiles on me. CNBC ran a segment calling it the greatest bounce back in Miami startup history. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the name, the reputation, the quiet understanding that I wasn't someone you could write off. Not anymore. Not ever again. Final conversations. The true end weeks passed. Then one day, out of nowhere, a DM slid into my inbox. Sierra's mother. I just wanted to apologize for everything, for how she treated you, for how blind we were back then. I stared at it, thought about it, and then I replied. No apology needed. Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Her reply. Just one word, respect, permanent severance. That was it. The final thread. Cut. No lingering feelings, no bitterness, just peace. Reflection. What they never taught me about closure. Standing on the balcony of my Star Island home, I realized something. It was never about revenge. Not really. It was about reclaiming myself, my dignity, my identity, my future. The truth is, betrayal doesn't destroy you. It edits your guest list. You lose the wrong people, and you make space for the right ones. And when you stop trying to prove yourself to the ones who never deserved you, the peace that follows unmatched. I turned. Walked inside. Talia was waiting at the kitchen island, sketching out the next expansion phase. You ready for this next chapter? She asked. I smiled. Yeah, I really am. And for the first time in a long time. That wasn't a lie. I always thought winning would feel louder, maybe like a standing ovation, or the pounding bass of a victory lap. But it turns out, real winning, it's silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full of peace, clarity, and the absolute absence of anything that no longer serves you. No more second-guessing myself. No more shrinking to make someone else feel taller. No more walking on eggshells wondering if today was the day I'd disappoint someone who was never rooting for me in the first place. Standing on the balcony of my Star Island home, coffee in hand, sunrise pouring gold across the water, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. The bay was still. Boats drifted quietly in the distance. Palm fronds whispered in the wind. Beneath me, my dog sprawled out like he owned the entire property. Maybe in a way he did. He was here long before the collapse, before the betrayal, before the rebuild, and now here he was, still here, still solid, still family. Talia walked out, tablet in one hand, her coffee in the other. Her sunglasses caught the sun, a perfect mirror of the morning's glow. "Did you see the numbers?" she asked, glancing down. I raised an eyebrow. "Which numbers?" She turned the screen toward me. My last post. A shot of the house from the driveway, subtle but deliberate. The caption read, "Sometimes the exit is the upgrade." 1.4 million likes, she said, scrolling. 68,000 comments. And, get this, Forbes picked it up. They wrote an article about how social media handles modern success narratives. I chuckled softly, not out of gloating, but genuine disbelief at how the universe sometimes chooses to tie things together. You'd think they'd have bigger things to write about. "Oh, they do," she smirked. "But people love a redemption arc, especially one that comes with oceanfront property." I shrugged, sipping my coffee. "It's not about them anymore." "No," she agreed, sitting beside me. "It's not, but the irony, it still stings them anyway." It wasn't about Sierra anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. But every now and then I'd hear the whispers. Little tidbits dropped by mutuals. Little updates I never asked for but got anyway. She was surviving, if that's what you'd call it. Gone were the rented penthouses, the endless brunches, the over-filtered Instagram stories captioned with CEO vibes while Julian paid the bills. The last anyone saw, she was working retail in Bal Harbor. Folding clothes, organizing racks. The same store she once bragged about never needing to step foot in because it's for middle-tier shoppers. Irony's a poet. People would send me pictures sometimes. Screenshots of her spotted out and about. Most of the time I deleted them. Other times I just stared for a second, not out of malice, but from that strange, detached curiosity you have when looking at something that used to mean the world, and now barely registers. I didn't hate her, but I didn't forgive her either. I simply stopped caring. And there's a special kind of peace that comes with indifference, a freedom heavier than love, deeper than hate. Julian, though, he got exactly what he earned. 14 years. No parole. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. Tax evasion. Conspiracy. The courtroom was packed the day it came down. Reporters shoved microphones in anyone's face. Cameras flashed nonstop. His mugshot hit the press before the ink on the sentencing paperwork dried. Every asset seized. Every yacht. Every property. Every offshore account. Gone. I didn't attend. I didn't need to. But I did see the news. Everyone did. From hedge fund king to inmate 64127. Julianne Devereaux, the rise, the fall, the cautionary tale. And the comments were even better. Imagine nuking your whole life over a man who can't even legally own a boat anymore. Sierra fumbled the hardest bag in Miami history. Can't even sail liquidity anymore. Man's landlocked for life. The internet was merciless, and for once I wasn't mad about it. My company thriving wasn't even the right word anymore. We expanded nationally, then globally. The merger with Elliott's group skyrocketed our valuation to numbers I wouldn't have dared whisper to myself 3 years ago. Forbes ran a headline, "The Greatest Comeback in Miami Tech." CNBC called it proof that the best revenge is ownership. But you know what? Somewhere along the line, it stopped being about proving them wrong. It became about proving myself right, about building something that couldn't be touched, not by betrayal, not by rumors, not by anyone who once thought I wasn't enough. I was never anyone's fallback, never anyone's plan B. And now everyone knew it. I opened my closet one quiet afternoon and saw it, a small box shoved in the corner, the last relic of a life that wasn't mine anymore. Inside were two things: our wedding rings, and the key to the apartment we once shared. I turned them over in my palm, feeling nothing. No ache, no sadness, not even anger. Just clarity. Just peace. I walked down to the dock. The water was calm. The city sparkled behind me, indifferent. The same way I now felt about them. One by one I dropped them. The key. Splash. The rings. Plunk. Gone. Washed away like everything else that no longer belonged. Not a ceremony. Not an act of rage. Just release. Talia stepped out a few minutes later, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "You good?" she asked, settling next to me on the dock. I nodded. "Yeah. Actually, yeah. I really am." She handed me a glass. "To what's next?" I raised it. "To what's next?" We clinked, smiled. It was simple, but it was everything. A few days later, I got a DM. Sierra's mother. "Ruth, I just wanted to apologize. For everything. For how she treated you. For how blind we were back then." I stared at it for a long time. Thought about it. Then I typed back, "No apology needed. Sometimes the trash takes itself out." Her reply was just one word: respect. And that was the end of that. The final thread, severed, no anger, no resentment, no lingering what if. Just done. At a private brunch a week later, someone asked me, half joking, "If you could go back, would you change anything?" I actually laughed. Not a single thing. Every betrayal, every lie, every broken promise. It burned away what wasn't real. It sharpened me. It cleared my lane. Without it, I wouldn't be here. Not in this house. Not in this life. Not this version of me. And frankly, I like this version. A lot. That night, as the sun set over the bay, I posted one final photo. A simple shot from my balcony. The water. The skyline. My dog sitting at my feet. No people, no faces, just peace. Caption: "The best revenge isn't revenge. It's freedom." No hashtags, no tags, no subtweets. It wasn't about them. It never was. The likes rolled in. Comments flooded. People would dissect it, gossip about it, project their own meanings onto it. Let them. Because I wasn't watching. I turned my phone face down, took a deep breath, and smiled. Because sometimes, the closure you're looking for isn't some perfect conversation or apology or karmic punishment. It's realizing you've built a life so beautiful that the people who tried to break you can't even afford a ticket to watch it. That's the win. That's the ending. That's the freedom. And the best part, it's only the beginning. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for. Sometimes it does it gently. Other times it uses a wrecking ball. But here's the truth. Not every ending is a loss. Sometimes it's a rescue. Sometimes what feels like rejection is simply redirection toward something far greater than we imagined. Betrayal hurts, but it also reveals. It reveals who never deserved a seat at your table. It shows you that peace isn't found in proving people wrong. It's found in no longer needing to. The real victory is never revenge. It's rebuilding your life so beautifully, so fully, that the ones who tried to break you become footnotes in a story they were never meant to finish. Growth isn't loud. It's quiet. It's waking up one day and realizing the weight you've carried no longer belongs to you. If this story resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Where are you watching from? Share your reflections in the comments below. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.